The throne room of the Zyren Empire was vast enough to make a human feel small. High, vaulted ceilings glimmered with crystalline panels reflecting the distant light of 3 suns, while banners displaying the Queen's emblem, a silver crescent encircling a violet star, hung from the walls like silent sentinels. Guards in luminous armor lined the perimeter, their movements precise and disciplined, their eyes trained on the center of the chamber. I, a human emissary named Marcus Hale, had crossed half the galaxy to reach this room. My mission was diplomatic: negotiate a trade pact, prevent a border skirmish, and leave without igniting an interstellar incident. Simple. Routine. Supposedly. But nothing about that day would be routine. At the far end of the room, on her raised dais, the AlienQueen Valara sat. Her skin shimmered violet, her crest feathers fanning out like an ornate crown. Her eyes were liquid gold, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her posture radiated authority, but there was a subtle tension in her shoulders, one that humans rarely saw in rulers of her magnitude. As I approached, the guards parted, and the Queen's gaze fixed on me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "Human," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber, melodic yet laced with authority. "You have traveled far. Speak quickly. Why should I trust your words?" I bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, I come not to demand, but to propose peace and cooperation between our peoples. Nothing more." Valara's lips curved faintly, perhaps amusement, perhaps skepticism. She leaned forward, resting her hands delicately on the armrests of her throne. "Marcus Hale," she said, her tone softening, "you have impressed me with your courage to appear here alone. But I have another question, one more personal. Do I look ugly to you?" The room fell silent. Even the guards seemed to hold their breath. A ripple passed through the assembled ministers and advisors, some exchanging quick, nervous glances. I froze for a fraction of a second, not because I was afraid, but because the question carried layers beyond mere curiosity. It was a test, a trap, an assessment of my honesty, my courage, and perhaps my understanding of alien psychology. One wrong answer could provoke outrage, or worse, dismissal. I studied her face, the subtle tension around her eyes, the way her crest shifted slightly backward, signaling vulnerability. My pulse quickened, but my training in diplomacy, anthropology, and human instinct guided me. "Your Majesty," I said carefully, "ugliness is a human concept. And in human terms, you are striking, beyond what words can capture." The room remained silent. I continued, choosing my words deliberately. "More importantly, your presence commands attention. That is not beauty or ugliness. That is power, wisdom, and history. Anyone who judges you only by appearance fails to see your true essence." A faint gasp echoed from the back of the chamber. Even some of the Queen's most trusted ministers seemed taken aback by the boldness of my answer. Valara's golden eyes widened slightly. Her posture softened, the rigid authority giving way to curiosity. "Bold human," she whispered, almost to herself. "You answer not with flattery nor with fear." I inclined my head respectfully. "I speak as I see, Your Majesty. Honesty is more valuable than comfort." She studied me for several long seconds, the kind that stretch into eternity in a room filled with expectation. Then, slowly, she leaned forward and allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. It was a smile that few had ever seen on a ruler whose power spanned star systems. "You surprise me, Marcus Hale," she said quietly. "Few have the courage or the clarity to speak thus. You may yet prove useful." The tension in the room eased. Whispers began to circulate among the courtiers, many wondering what had been said, sensing that a historic moment had occurred without knowing why. Valara gestured to the ceremonial table beside her throne. "Sit," she commanded. "We have much to discuss. Not only the treaty, but your perspective. Perhaps humanity has wisdom we have overlooked." I followed, careful not to show the mixture of relief and incredulity that surged through me. The Queen's test had been subtle yet profound. Honesty, diplomacy, and empathy, all measured in a single question. As we discussed trade agreements, resource allocations, and cultural exchange, I noticed the subtle ways she softened in my presence. Her questions were no longer sharp tests, but curious probes, seeking insight rather than dominance. I realized then that respect could be earned even across species, even across millennia of mistrust. Hours passed. The chamber lights shifted as the suns outside moved across the sky. The discussions grew less formal and more candid. The Queen asked about human culture, about our methods of governance, about how we resolve conflicts without violence. I answered with transparency, careful honesty, and anecdotes from human history, and she listened. Finally, when the negotiations concluded, Valara stood. Her tall, elegant form seemed even more imposing in movement, yet there was a gentleness to her gestures now that had been absent at our first meeting. "Marcus Hale," she said, her voice carrying authority and something new, admiration. "Your words today were unexpected. You demonstrated that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. That honesty is not weakness, but strength. That even humans, whom we underestimated, may hold truths worth listening to." She reached into a crystalline pouch at her side and produced a small object, glowing softly. It was a symbol of recognition, a medallion that the Zyren Empire awarded only to those who had displayed exceptional courage and wisdom. "This is for you," she said, placing it around my neck. "Not for diplomacy alone, but for your insight, your honesty, and the respect you have shown me." I accepted it with a bow. "Your Majesty, I am honored." She nodded and turned to her ministers. "Let this be a lesson. Power is not measured by fear or obedience alone. Insight, courage, and honesty are equally formidable." The room erupted in quiet applause, the kind that carried weight because it acknowledged not only my bravery, but the lesson embedded in it. Afterward, I was escorted from the throne room, the weight of the medallion around my neck a constant reminder of the moment when a single question had shifted the dynamics of interstellar diplomacy. For days, the story spread across the outpost and neighboring systems. Humans and aliens alike spoke of the moment the AlienQueen had asked a simple question, and the galaxy had held its breath for the answer. It was a reminder that courage and honesty could bridge worlds, that respect could be earned in the briefest moments, and that sometimes a single question, even one about beauty, could redefine the course of history. Years later, when I returned to the Zyren Empire as part of a permanent diplomatic delegation, Valara greeted me with a smile, one that spoke of trust, friendship, and the memory of a day when honesty had shaped the future of two civilizations. And whenever I recalled that day, I remembered the stillness in the throne room, the golden eyes of a ruler holding centuries of expectation, and the simple, profound power of saying what you truly see.